You are taught to fear it, to suppress it, to medicate its very existence out of your life. You are conditioned to believe that anger is a poison, a destructive force that only tears down, never builds up. But what if that narrative is a carefully constructed lie? What if, within the molten core of your outrage, lies a fire capable of forging revolutions, igniting artistic masterpieces, and propelling you towards profound personal and societal transformation? This is not an exposition on uncontrolled fury, nor a justification for cruelty. No, this is an exploration of productive anger, the precise strategic deployment of a primal human emotion that has, throughout history, been the engine of progress. Today, we will dismantle the myth of anger as purely destructive. We will journey into the depths of human experience, guided by the insights of philosophers and revolutionaries, artists and activists, to understand how outrage can be refined into a potent tool for change. Before we begin, as usual, don't expect comfort. My job is not to make you comfortable, but to tell you the hard truth. This isn't about making you feel good. It's about waking you up to the power you've buried beneath your restraint, to the fire you were taught to fear, but need to master. Your anger isn't chaos. It's clarity in disguise. You just need to know how to aim it. So before we dive deeper, please subscribe. Not for comfort, not for entertainment, but for truth. Because here, we don't escape reality. We confront it, one uncomfortable truth at a time. And if that scares you, it means you're exactly where you need to be. What if the emotion you've spent your whole life trying to suppress was never your enemy, but your untapped power? What if your anger was not a flaw, but a form of intelligence? You were taught that anger destroys. Yes, uncontrolled rage can shatter lives, ignite war and destroy the soul, but nobody told you that fire also forges steel. The same flame that consumes can also purify. Think about it. Every invention that reshaped humanity, the wheel, the printing press, the civil rights movement, the masterpieces of art, all began not with peace, but with outrage, a deep, burning rejection of what is, in favor of what could be. You've been told to calm down, but maybe what you need is to wake up. Pause for a moment and ask yourself, what if my anger is not against others, but against my own silence? Write this affirmation in the comment. My anger is not my enemy. My fire is not my flaw. Your aversion to anger is deeply rooted. From childhood, you are told, don't get angry, calm down, it's not appropriate. This constant suppression left you with a wrong illusion of a fundamental human emotion. Aristotle, in his Nicomachean Ethics, recognized that while excessive anger is a vice, a complete lack of it is also a flaw. He said the virtuous person gets angry at the right time, for the right reason, and in the right way. So, anger is not the problem. Direction is. Anger has a purpose. It energizes action, increases focus, mobilizes courage. It's the body's internal declaration that something must change. But most people never learn to read their anger. They only react to it. They punch walls instead of patterns. They fight people instead of problems. Let me ask you a question. What if the emotion you call destructive is actually trying to save you from stagnation? Write this declaration in the comment. I learn to direct my anger. I turn motion into meaning. The society often demonizes anger because it is disruptive. It challenges hierarchies, questions authority, and demands accountability. A submissive society, devoid of righteous anger, is easier to control. But as James Baldwin powerfully articulated, not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. And often, facing uncomfortable truths requires an initial spark of outrage. Here's another question. Have you mistaken discomfort with your own anger for a sign of its inherent evil, rather than a symptom of societal conditioning? Make this affirmation. I will question my conditioned responses to anger. I will seek to understand its true nature. Rage, when converted, can be a potent catalyst for creation. Friedrich Nietzsche, in his exploration of the ressentiment of the weak, observed how bottled-up frustration and resentment could manifest as a driving force. While Nietzsche's concept is complex, it highlights how intense negative emotions, when not allowed to fester, can be redirected. Imagine an artist, furious with the injustice they witness, pouring that white-hot emotion onto a canvas, creating a piece that screams defiance and beauty simultaneously. Nietzsche once wrote, "Out of life's school of war, what does not destroy me makes me stronger." He wasn't glorifying suffering, he was revealing transformation. He saw anger and resentment as energies that could rot or renew, depending on what you do with them. He called the decayed form ressentiment, when anger turns inward, festers, and poisons. But when you convert it, when you take that pain, that humiliation, that fury, and build something with it, it becomes creation. Every great artist, every reformer, every visionary, from Van Gogh to Malcolm X, carried fire in their veins. They refused to let that fire consume them. Instead, they forged their will from it. Think of scientific innovation. How many breakthroughs were born from a furious frustration with an unsolved problem, a burning anger at the limitations of current knowledge? The scientist who rages against a disease, dedicating their life to finding a cure, is channeling productive anger. The engineer who is fed up with an inefficient system, driven by a deep-seated annoyance, designs a better one. Anger, when disciplined, becomes fuel, a sacred fire that refuses to accept what is, and demands to discover what could be. Behind every great advancement lies a moment of profound irritation, a refusal to tolerate mediocrity. Marie Curie didn't stumble upon radioactivity through calm curiosity alone. She pursued it through relentless dissatisfaction with the boundaries of chemistry. The Wright brothers didn't simply dream of flight. They were infuriated by the arrogance of those who claimed it was impossible. Their anger wasn't the explosive kind that destroys, it was the smoldering kind that refines, focused, enduring, and intelligent. Rage becomes sacred when it evolves from reaction to creation. The difference between chaos and progress lies in where the anger is aimed. The undisciplined mind lashes out at the world. The disciplined one channels that fury into form, into equations, engines, and revolutions of thought. Productive anger says, "This cannot be the limit. There must be more." It is both rebellion and reverence, rebellion against stagnation, and reverence for the truth hidden behind resistance. Think of Nikola Tesla, whose innovations were born not only from genius, but from a burning frustration with the inefficiencies of his time. He wasn't content with the crude machinery of his age, he was offended by it. His anger was intellectual, spiritual, almost divine in its precision. He directed it not at people, but at ignorance, at the sluggishness of progress. Every spark of his invention was the physical manifestation of a mind that refused to accept limitation. Anger, in this sense, is not an enemy of reason. It is the spark that awakens reason. It disrupts the complacent stillness of comfort. Without anger, we would have no urgency, no edge, no propulsion toward innovation. Comfort breeds repetition, anger breeds transformation. The scientist, like the philosopher, must at some point grow furious with the unanswered question, furious enough to tear the veil off mystery. Without that emotional ignition, inquiry becomes sterile observation rather than revolution. But this kind of anger is not theatrical. It is not loud, nor violent, nor consumed by ego. It is quiet, focused, and relentless. It works in laboratories at 3 a.m., not in outbursts. It rewrites code, tests hypotheses, challenges authority, not out of vanity, but from a sense that injustice exists in ignorance itself. This is what Carl Jung might call integrated anger, the emotion accepted, understood, and given direction, rather than repression. Carl Jung's concept of the shadow self implies that repressing aspects of yourself, even negative ones like anger, doesn't make them disappear. It merely forces them into unconscious realms where they can become far more destructive. Confronting and integrating your anger, rather than denying it, is essential. Destructive anger screams, "Someone must pay." Productive anger whispers, something must change. The first consumes energy, the second converts it. And that conversion, that inner chemistry, is what separates the destructive revolutionary from the visionary one. History remembers not those who merely raged, but those who forged something from their rage. Even in the arts, you see this same energy. Beethoven, deaf and furious at the cruelty of his condition, transformed his rage into symphonies that transcended human limitation. His fury did not break him. It made him immortal. Frida Kahlo painted through pain that would have crushed most spirits. Their art was a dialogue with their own suffering, anger, pain, defiance, all channeled into beauty. That is the essence of productive rage, not denial of pain, but its conversion into meaning. In modern science, think of the countless researchers who watched loved ones die from diseases that medicine could not yet touch at the time. That grief, that helpless fury, became purpose. Jonas Salk's work on the polio vaccine was not detached curiosity. It was a mission. His anger was quiet but potent, directed toward human suffering, not personal ego. The fire burned in service to life, not against it. And so, when we speak of productive anger, we are not romanticizing rage. We are refining it. We are recognizing it as one of the most powerful creative forces known to the human psyche when placed under discipline. The difference between a torch and a wildfire is focus. The same emotion that can destroy cities can also illuminate civilizations when properly guided. If calmness is the ocean, then anger is the storm that reveals the depth beneath. Every visionary, every revolutionary, every scientist who changed the world began with that storm, a refusal to accept the given order. The challenge then is not to suppress anger, but to train it, to aim it precisely at what is broken, never at who is to blame. Because the truth is, no great invention was ever born from detachment. It was born from the sacred discontent that says, this must not remain as it is. To discipline anger is to domesticate fire, not by extinguishing it, but by enclosing it within purpose. Every emotion has a direction through instincts. Anger's natural emotion is outward, explosive, consuming. But what if, instead of letting it burn through you, you built a forge around it, a place where its heat could shape, not destroy? The first step, then, is awareness, to recognize anger not as an enemy, but as energy. You cannot channel what you deny. You cannot refine what you suppress. Psychologically, anger signals a boundary violated, a value disrespected, or a truth ignored. Instead of reacting impulsively, ask, what is this anger trying to protect? What does it reveal about what I care for most? In that question lies transformation. Anger, examined honestly, reveals your moral architecture, what you will not accept, what matters deeply to you. Most people try to silence that voice, fearing it will make them cruel. But suppressed anger doesn't disappear. It festers, mutating into resentment or self-contempt. The wise instead listen, interpret, and give it intelligent direction. This is what Aristotle meant when he said, anyone can become angry. That is easy. But to be angry with the right person, to the right degree, at the right time, and for the right purpose, that is not easy. Discipline, then, is not suppression, it's calibration. Imagine two sculptors standing before a block of marble. Their tools are rough, their hands hardened, their patience tested. The untrained sculptor strikes wildly, chipping aimlessly. The master sculptor strikes with precision, guided by vision. Anger is the same. It's the hammer in your hand. Without discipline, it shatters. With clarity, it carves. Ask yourself, is my anger destroying the stone or shaping the figure within it? Psychologically, the discipline of anger begins with a pause. Between impulse and action lies a space, that sacred moment where freedom exists. Viktor Frankl called it the gap between stimulus and response, the birthplace of growth. When fury rises, the undisciplined react, the disciplined reflect. They observe their emotion, trace its roots, and then redirect it toward constructive effort. To pause is not weakness, it's containment. The volcano that erupts, destroys. The volcano that channels its heat creates fertile ground. Anger, when paired with focus, becomes strategy. It teaches you to identify the problem, not the enemy. Instead of asking, "Who angered me?" ask, "What system, pattern, or belief sustains this injustice?" The activist turns rage into a movement. The philosopher turns it into an inquiry. The scientist turns it into a design. In each case, anger ceases to be chaos. It becomes calculus. The heat remains, but it is measured, intentional, exacting. Carl Jung might say that disciplined anger is the integration of the shadow, the acceptance that the capacity for rage exists within you, and that it can be a source of creative power rather than shame. To reject your anger is to reject your depth. To integrate it is to become whole. When you embrace it consciously, you discover that your aggression is not your curse, it is your courage misdirected. Every suppressed roar becomes potential energy for transformation. Make these affirmations in the comment. My anger is not my weakness. It is my will refusing to die. I am not ruled by my rage. I refine it into resolve. I turn fury into focus and pain into purpose. This is the psychology of transformation, not denial, but redirection. The creative mind learns to work with its fire to transform emotional voltage into intellectual output. Think of how Nietzsche's rage at moral complacency birthed a new philosophy of strength. Think of how Simone de Beauvoir's anger at inequality gave rise to existential feminism. Their power wasn't in their serenity, it was in their ability to discipline the storm. Ask yourself, what if the very emotion you fear most is the one that could move you forward? What if the frustration you call burnout is simply creative energy trapped without direction? The key is not to calm yourself into submission, but to guide your anger into creation. Write through it, build through it, speak through it. Let it move your hands, not your tongue. Let it shape ideas, not arguments. Every great revolution, intellectual or personal, begins with a refusal to tolerate decay any longer. Anger, when mastered, leaves something behind, clarity. When misused, it leaves ashes. Camus warned that the rebel must never become the thing he fights. Rage without direction becomes tyranny. Fury without reflection becomes self-sabotage. After every storm, the fire must rest. The point of mastering anger is not to live in constant combustion. It's to ignite only when necessary. That's how the blacksmith works. Heat, hammer, cool. Heat, hammer, cool. Martha Nussbaum said anger evolves. It begins with pain and blame, but can transform into what she calls transition anger. This is not about revenge, it's about repair. The disciplined mind doesn't seek revenge, it seeks reform. Instead of saying, they must suffer, it asks, how can the system evolve? This reframing converts moral heat into moral clarity. It's what turns vengeance into justice, protest into progress, and suffering into art. And so, the discipline of anger becomes the architecture of creativity. When you can hold fury in your chest without letting it rot your heart, you gain the power to turn chaos into structure. To take offense at what's broken is natural, to repair it is divine. The most creative souls in history were not those who never felt rage, but those who learned to work with it like an instrument. They struck it, tuned it, and made it sing. Remember this: anger is not meant to make you loud, it's meant to make you clear. The world does not change when you explode. It changes when you focus. Discipline your anger, and you will find that beneath its heat lies vision, a glimpse of the world as it should be. Ask yourself, what do I find intolerable? And how can I transform that intolerance into invention? Where am I wasting my fire on reaction instead of forging something that lasts? What injustice, in myself or the world, deserves the precision of my fury, not the noise of it? Make this affirmation: I will not suppress my fire. I will study it. I will not waste my rage on noise. I will build with it. My anger is energy, and I am its engineer. When anger matures into purpose, it ceases to destroy and begins to create legacy. The world remembers not the loudest tempers, but the clearest fires, those who turn their outrage into art, their frustration into philosophy, their anger into invention. Productive anger is not a tantrum against the world. It is a rebellion for the world. It is the refusal to tolerate ignorance, mediocrity, or injustice, and the courage to build something greater in their place. Consider Friedrich Nietzsche, whose fury against conformity and moral complacency became a philosophy that still electrifies minds centuries later. His anger was not the chaos of bitterness, but the discipline of rebellion. He sculpted thought itself, hammering away at comfortable illusions until truth stood bare. His rage did not consume him, it revealed him. Every line he wrote was a strike against stagnation, a testament to how intellectual fury can become revelation. Artists too have carried this sacred fire. James Baldwin's anger at racial injustice and moral hypocrisy became words of piercing empathy and timeless truth. He wrote not to destroy, but to awaken. His anger had rhythm, compassion, and direction, the very traits that transform emotion into immortality. Frida Kahlo, painting through agony, converted pain into beauty. Her art was a rebellion against despair itself, proving that rage need not be shouted to be powerful. It can whisper through color, line, and form, and still move generations. In the realm of liberation and revolution, anger finds its moral edge. Frantz Fanon's rage at the dehumanization of colonized people was not vengeance, but vision. He understood that to free the oppressed, one must first awaken the will to resist, a will born from disciplined outrage. His writings became blueprints for psychological and political emancipation, showing that rage, when infused to intellect and empathy, can rebuild not only societies, but nations. Even in the quiet chambers of invention, the same force burns. Every great scientist and engineer begins with a sense of irritation, that restless, almost sacred dissatisfaction with how things are. Thomas Edison, driven by endless trial and error, turned frustration into endurance. Every failed experiment was not a defeat, but a redirection of energy. What we call innovation is often the result of disciplined frustration, the refusal to give up until the world bends toward improvement. And then there is the greatest transformation of all, the inner one. The person who learns to refine their anger does not simply change the world, they change themselves. When you stop fighting life and begin to build with its tension, you become both the artist and the clay. This is the final magic, the conversion of anger into awareness, of turmoil into transcendence. To master anger is to master your own evolution. The fire that once threatened to consume you becomes the light by which you see yourself clearly. So, let this truth settle deeply within you. Your anger is not your enemy. It is your unfinished masterpiece. It is the energy of what refuses to die in you, the part that still believes something better is possible. Do not suppress it. Study it, sculpt it, and when you are ready, let it burn, not to destroy but to illuminate. Because in the end, the world is not changed by those who remain calm in the face of destruction. It is changed by those who dare to feel deeply, think clearly, and act deliberately. Those who turn their fury into focus, their pain into purpose, and their rage into creation. Thank you once again for joining me on this exploration. Please subscribe to join this continuous path of difficult but necessary deep introspection, where emotion becomes understanding and anger refines itself into creation. Here we don't run from the fire, we learn to forge with it. So, stay, reflect, and keep evolving. Because every time you confront yourself, you create a stronger version of who you were meant to be.